All right, today I wanted to take a little time and talk about images if you're adding them to your blog post. So if we've set up your web page for you, if you've wanted an area to do blogging, you can upload your own images and write little articles and stuff. So here's a little article: will paintball mask fit over glasses? And you can see that we've chosen to put a little image in here. And if you are using Firefox, it works out better than Chrome for seeing information on images because you can just right click and view image info. And it tells me what the story is with that image. So I can see that it's 24 kilobytes. Okay, so 24 kilobytes, 450 by 450 is the size of the image. And that's what it tells me. Okay, that is a nice small image. You want your images to be probably anywhere from 24 to maybe 50, 75 kilobytes. If they're way bigger than that, it will slow down the loading of the page. Let's look at an example for that. You've probably seen this before where you go to click on an image and watch the way this image comes in. You'll see when I click on it, it slowly came in. That's because this image is much larger than what we're actually seeing. I can tell because I have a magnifying glass on my cursor right now when I'm over it, which means the browser has taken a much larger picture and made it smaller. So when I click on this, you can see how ginormous this picture is in reality. Now, if you want to put something out there where somebody can do that, maybe in this situation, and somebody wants to be able to see all of the fine detail work on this, okay. But for most of what we're doing, we don't want images that big. Let's right click and view the image info on this, and we can see that this image is 4,949 kilobytes, which is 4 megabytes. Okay. The problem with large images is if you're on a high-speed connection like I am, it still will come in slow, which is a bad user experience. And if we don't need the size, we don't want to do that. On a phone, it is even worse. And Google understands this. So if your page is slow loading because of large images, and it's not going to work well on mobile, either because your mobile setup isn't right or your images are too large, Google will penalize you. They will say, well, we don't want to really show this page versus page X versus page Y. Let's show these other people's page because their images aren't as big and so it can load faster on their phone. So it is one of the things that Google's looking at. So when you're dealing with these images here, let's not do that large of an image. But let's suppose I love this image using Firefox again. Um, I'm going to show you the easy way to download this and make it smaller, get it to the size you want. So we're going to save this image. And when I right click on it and save image, then it asks, okay, where the heck do I want to put this thing? So I'm going to go to my desktop and I'm just going to make let's stick it in I've got a folder here. We've got a Gatsplat folder someplace, I'm sure. So here's Gatsplat Pics. So I'm going to put it in Gatsplat Pics, and we're going to call this Huge Gun. All right, so now I have a huge gun image. And again, if I view the image info, it tells me how many megabytes it is, but also the dimensions of it. So it's 4,928 pixels by 3,280 pixels. Most people have their screen set up to where if you're going edge to edge, you're seeing most of our stuff is probably under 2,000 pixels. Okay, it depends on how your resolution is set. But when you're looking at little small images, remember, go back to this, and this is filling up a third of my screen. It's only 400 by 400. So you can see on this whole screen, we're only doing about 1,200. So we don't need to bring in a picture that is 4,000. Okay, so we're bringing in much bigger picture than we're actually even looking at. So there's no need to do that. So now we're going to open up my folder that has the image in it. So let's go to my desktop and we're going to take a look at the Gatsplat Pics. All right. So here's all the images in Gatsplat pics, and one of them that we have in here is this ginormous huge gun.png. And even mousing over it here, it tells us that it's 4.83 meg and it's 4,928 by 3280. But we want to use this picture. What are we going to do? Well, we're going to use a fun little program called Squish. All right. So let's sit here and I'm going to open up a tab and let me get this sized right for you so you can see what I'm doing easier. Okay, so this program is Squoosh, Squoosh.app. So Squoosh.app, that's what you want to open up. Okay, so when I open up Squish.app, we can see that it allows us to select an image or drag and drop an image. And this is it's a program that Google has out there to make it easy for you to make your picture smaller so Google's happier with you. So if you have a large picture, let's always check it and make sure we get the right size. And if not, we can squish it. Okay, let's squish our image. So we're going to select an image. And if we click on that, it takes us to our computer, and then we can scroll around and find it. So here's our Gatsplat pics. And then we can scroll to the image that we want to squish. Okay, wherever the heck it is. What did I call that thing? Let's see here. Paintball gun. Did I call it that? No, huge gun. That's what we call it. So let's go find the H's here. Yeah, there it is, huge gun.png. And so we're going to open that up. So what it's doing right now is it's pulling in that image. Okay, and let's make this smaller so I can see what's going on. All right, so here is that image now. Okay, and the difference between what this image looks like on the left versus the right is what the difference would be if we squished it. So even at the resolution we're at, and ignore the black background, that's because it's a transparent PNG, so it's actually going to be a clear background when we're done with this either way. But you can see that this there's not a huge difference. If we zoom in, if we pull this thing on down and we zoom in a little bit, the difference in this star right here is that would be 5 meg and this would only be 320K. It's going to make our image 94% smaller. Well, 320K, I mean, it's a tenth the size, right? But we don't even need it this big. So we can also choose to resize this image because for us, we don't need it 4,928. If you're doing an image that you want to be about half the page, then your images should be about 600. If you want it to be the whole page, then maybe 1200, 1800, somewhere in there if you want really good resolution. So we're going to use this just as a small little image on our thing, on one of our blog posts. So let's make it 650. If you want to leave things at 650 for the blog post, that should be a fine size. Now that I've taken it to 650, now it's checking again to seeing what size will this thing be down to. And when we look, we can see, well, holy cow, this thing looks all pixelated compared to this. Well, that's because we're in huge, huge resolution. When we're done with this picture, it's going to look about like that on our screen. And the difference between these two is insignificant. You can see this little star here because maybe we're even going to be that big, but there's not really a quality difference in there. And so this will take it to 22.5 kilobytes. It's basically 100% smaller than what the other image is. Okay. Now this one's throwing you off a little bit because of the black background. Let's just take a look at another image for fun. But if I did want to keep this one, and let's keep this one, I am going to download it. Okay, so this little download here. Then it'll give me the option of do I want to open it up or save it? And I'm going to say save it. Well, Firefox has our little download thing up here and it shows you the progress. And so when I click on this now, here is the file. And instead of opening the file, how I do it is I open the folder. And when I open the folder, it's going to be right on top and I right click and I cut. When I cut, that means I've copied it, and I'm going to remove it from here in a second anyway. And so then I go back to my desktop, and I go back to the folder that I have this thing in, Gatsplat Pics, and then I'm going to right click and I am going to paste. And when I do that, it's going to have the huge gun in here, but we can see now the huge gun is only 22 kilobytes instead of it being 4 meg. So it's a much, much smaller image for us. It's 650 by 450. All right, let's just take a look at this picture. This is 250 by 249. It's a relatively small picture, but it's 131. So we're going to make the young player one smaller too. So here, let's back up here. We're going to select a new image, and it's going to ask what image do we want. So we will go on down and let's find, we'll go back to that same picture, young player. So I right click, I click on that in order to open it up. And here's that image. Okay, let's blow this up a little bit. So we're just using as a really small little image on our page. Why do we have it being 135K? If you look at the difference, can you tell? It looks the same. This is 135K. This is only 13K. It's making that image 90% smaller on your web page, which is going to make it load so much faster, especially for the customers that are using phones. And it makes Google happier that way. So if we want to check, well, what's the size of this picture? This is a 250 by 250 basically. If that's what we want to leave it at, if that's the resolution. So we're just going to take it from a 135 to a 14 and we download this thing. So what do you want to do? I'm just going to save the file. So it saves it. Now we're going to go here. I'm going to click on the folder in order to open up the downloads folder. So here's the downloads folder. I'm going to right click on this and I'm going to cut. That way it doesn't stay in my download folder. I'm going to go back to my Gatsplat Pics. And then in here, I'm going to right click and I'm going to paste. Okay. So now we have our young player PNG here that's 131. We have our young player here that's only 13.7. Okay, so there's huge difference in the size. So I'm just going to delete that one. We don't need him anymore. And we have this picture. And if I double click on it, it'll pop up and that's what the picture looks like. Can't tell the difference between the two, but it'll make it so much smaller. So now when I go in to do my blog post and I'm adding these images, they're going to be sized appropriately for what we want. So if you're doing a blog post where, as an example, let's go in and take a look at a Gatsplat blog post I have here. Will paintball masks fit? Okay, so here's this. If we're going to do a new post, once we do our new post, it's going to give us the option to add images. And if I go down here and I want to set a featured image and I click in order to grab one, we upload our image now. We're going to select the file. And when we go in to any of the images that we're going to put up, and let's just go to Gatsplat again. So we will go to Gatsplat Pics. Okay, and we can take a look at different images in here, and when you mouse over them, it's nice. It's going to tell you how big they are. That's a video, so that's really big. But here's two guns. If I look at this one, 22K. If I look at this one, 4 meg. All right, and the difference once we put it on the page is going to be insignificant because we're only using it as a 650 by 433 image anyway. So if I choose this one to put on the page, now it's going to upload it, and there it is, and it also gives me my sizing up here. So if you're looking at images and the sizings are very, very large, larger than what you need, it's a good idea to squish them first. Use the Squoosh.app. Hopefully that helps, and you learned a couple of things. Squish your images. Don't have them be bigger than you need. If you're putting them on a page, 650 is good. Use the Squish.app in order to take them down in size before you put them up. It'll make your page load faster and make Google happier with you. All right, hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.